Welcome to Tech Dive. Today, I have something a little bit different for you guys. I'm going to explain to you why I think that SimCity 4, the old Will Wright Maxis, original Maxis freaking EA game from 2004, 2003, is still at its core a better city building game than City Skylines. Now, I love City Skylines. I've put over 400 hours into this game. I've built huge cities, I've built small cities, I've built dozens and dozens of maps. I love this game. So all of my criticism for this game is purely out of love, because I want to see this game get better and better. If not, the sequel could be the best city building game of all time. That's what I want. And so, here's my top 5 list of reasons why I think SimCity 4 is still a better city building game than City Skylines. So, to begin, number 5, population density. So you think, big city like this, if you saw this in real life, you'd think there's millions of people, if not, maybe 10 million people living in a city with, this many huge skyscrapers and stuff. No, not at all. The city's 200,000 people. That's kind of pitiful. And why is that? Well, that's because the population density of City Skylines is really, really low. This game right now is telling me that in this 20-story freaking skyscraper, there's 8 families living in it. Now, how many is 8 families? Well, let's add them up. Let's see here. There's 5 and 6. That's 11. That's 22. Plus 7. 28 people live in a freaking skyscraper. 28 people. That's like 1 floor per person. That makes no sense at all. Why is that so low? I have some theories into why the population in this game is so low, but to keep moving on, it's just really, really low. And you go to a house, it says 1, maybe 2 families live in it, right? 2 households. That makes sense. Then you go to freaking skyscrapers. Oh, in this freaking 30-story office tower, there's 20 people working. 20? Seriously? 20 people work in this one freaking building. What about this building? Oh, 15 people work in this one. Oh, versus 20 in this one. That makes sense, right? No, that makes no sense at all. Why would 20 people work in a freaking 30-story skyscraper? That makes no sense. It's just purely them making up their own numbers. And I believe, conspiracy theory time here, that is to lower the population of the cities in City Skylines. And that is because the agent limit imparted on the game by the Unity engine. I'll go into that later on, but that's my first major gripe with this game, is that I built a huge impressive city. Oh, it's only 200,000 people. Well, that's kind of pitiful. In SimCity 4, I'm going to bring SimCity 4 into this. SimCity 4, in one freaking building, you'd have 2,000 people. If you're willing to install some mods like the Colossal add-on mod, which adds more tiers of buildings, you could have buildings with 10, 15,000 people living in. Now, it takes a freaking interstate to drive them around town, but that's pretty true to life, right? Freaking, there's skyscrapers in New York City, Shanghai, wherever, where there's 500 to 1,000 apartments in one building, right? And that's, there's 4 people per house. That's 4,000 or 5,000 people living in a single building. And this game, at most, can do, 25 families, I think? Here we go. Look at this skyscraper. One of the tallest buildings in my city. 22 households. Wow. So maybe 100 people? No, not even 100 people? Sweet. Cool, I'm so glad I worked so hard to get the skyscraper going up when it holds maybe 100 people in it. Freaking SimCity 4, if a projects or ghetto or whatever grows, you're going to have 1,500 people living in one little building. And that's going to put a real stress in the game. That adds to the difficulty and the intensity of the game, because you zone out a high density area and all of a sudden a whole bunch of thousands of poor people move in because of jobs. You're swamped with traffic and you're going to work your best to deal with it. In this game, there's none of that. New skyscraper coming in. Oh crap, I better accommodate my city to handle all this new traffic. Oh, never mind. It's maybe 100 people. That's okay. Only 33 of them can actually work. Well, maybe 15. I'm not sure. Do young adults work in this game? Probably not. So, It's nonsense. The population density in this game is complete nonsense. Alright, number 4. So here we have another kind of gripe that goes along those lines, is that City Skylines has no poverty. Poverty is a real thing. Real cities have it all the time. They deal with it. It's a part of it. So you think, over here, these buildings don't look as nice. So that obviously means that they're impoverished compared to these people living in these fancy skyscrapers. No. All that means is that this is a level 3 building instead of a level 4 or 5. That's the only difference. There's no other difference between this building and the other, except that it has less households and it's three levels instead of 5. And that makes no sense at all. Real cities have slums, they have middle class, they have upper class, they have the 1% billionaires living in them. Where are those? Those don't exist in this game. So this goes hand in hand with population density. Now, that is interesting because you think, oh, rich people, since they have more money, they'll pay for more space. So less people would fit in a large skyscraper full of rich people than in a poor skyscraper, right? Because you think, well, one family is rich enough to pay for each floor, so you only fit maybe a couple hundred people in a large building, but then if you get a bunch of poor people, maybe they can only afford to pay for like a quarter or an eighth of a floor's worth of space. So they need to have, 4 or 8 times as many people living in the building. That is absent from this game. Meanwhile, SimCity 4 simulates that perfectly. In the SimCity 4, when a fancy, high wealth residential building pops up with 800 rich people living in it, so it's a huge building. If the desirability factor isn't maintained, like the land value and the schools and the pollution, then it gets bumped down. Maybe the rich people don't want to live there, so they move out, and so the company goes out of business or something, and so, they split all the apartments up to fit more people in, but they're all poor because the rent's lower. But then your building that held 800 people now holds like 1,200. And then let's say you get rid of the schools or something, or, lower the desirability even more. Then that 800 person high density residential building doesn't get demolished or anything. It gets turned into like a 2,000 low income person building. And that is entirely absent from this game. I feel like that's a very good representation of, how cities work, right? Poor people can't afford large apartments, so, they're crammed in tighter, and rich people can't afford big apartments, so they're more spaced out. That's just entirely absent from this game. It's like the developers just ignored poverty in its entirety in this game, which is kind of interesting. But anyways, moving on. For number 3, we have the tile size limits. Now, I'm talking about not the city tiles, I'm talking about the zoning tiles. So you go down here and, so you have your big road, and then you have 4 tiles away from the road that you can build. And so that's enough to fit what? A single residential house? And that's it, right? That is pitiful. That is just outright pitiful. In SimCity 4, there's no limit because the ground, you could just, make this whole area right here residential. And then if some rich guy moved in, he could own an area this big. You would have a mansion in the middle of a plot of land this big in the middle of the city if you wanted. If, that grew there because of the desirability factors. This game cuts that out entirely. 4 tiles is all you get, which is pretty much garbage. Look, in the same space that you can fit, a relatively large house with a little backyard and stuff. In that same amount of space, you fit a skyscraper. What sense does that make? Have you ever been to a real city? In New York City, a city block is massive, and these buildings are huge. You could fit many, many residential houses in just the base of one of these buildings, let alone freaking, like a true skyscraper. But in this game, you get 4 tiles, and you don't even get Like here I have 3 by 3, so you think, oh, maybe a 6 by 6 building will grow. Nope, no such thing. Might as well, just doesn't exist. Why? I have no freaking clue. Because you know what that does? That limits what buildings can look like. It limits just the variety is sucked right from the game because of that. And I feel like it's not that. Is it really that complicated to just tell the roads to have more tiles attached to them? I'd be okay if they just bumped it up to like 8 or 10, right? Because you still have densely packed areas. It doesn't change any of that. It just lets you have more spaced out buildings. And on a side note, it lets you have real looking farms, because the farms in this game are pitiful. It's like, oh, look at that cow farm. It's the same amount of land as a residential house. Okay, that's cool, I guess, but not realistic at all. Freaking farms are huge. They take up a lot of space. SimCity 4, the agricultural tiles are a minimum of, I think, 4 by like 8 tiles, which is probably an area this big, is a minimum size for an agricultural area in SimCity 4. But I mean, it has to do with kind of the tile size, the city's size limits in the game. Anyways, enough with that one. Let's move on to number 2. Number 2, map size. So this game was kind of made in response to SimCity 5, where SimCity 5 had garbagely small tiles. Let's move to this view, right? Not that one. This view. So SimCity 5, you got like maybe a quarter of one of these tiles, and that's all you had to fit your city. Though it would link with other cities in the region, that's all you got. And that was so small that you could not make a healthy city because it restricted you in some way and forced you to build more cities elsewhere. It's really a horrible system. It pretty much tricked your viewers. If you played less than 10 hours of the game, you would never know that was a problem. But once you get past that point, the game's almost unplayable. But anyways, City Skylines fixed that. Like, hey, look, not only do we have a larger city tile out the gate, you buy all the tiles around it. If you mod that, you can have all the tiles around that. And if you mod beyond that, you can have all 9 by 9 tiles, which is it's a huge area compared to SimCity 5. That is freaking miles and miles and miles better, right? Because, you know, instead of having a small area like this to build in, you have this. You can just keep spreading out, and it's beautiful. But to put that in perspective, the total building area of this game is 18 kilometers by 18 kilometers. That's from the corner up here to the corner over here. That is large, but compared to not only SimCity 4, but real life, that isn't very much at all. So, in SimCity 4, the large tile is equal to about 4 tiles in this game, from what I've researched. And so, that's about 4 kilometers by 4 kilometers would be a large tile in SimCity 4. Because you would go to a region if you want to go to the next tile over, there was no limit on the number of tiles you could have. I had a region where it was 9 large tiles wide and 18 large tiles long. That is huge compared to this game. That's, I believe, 8 times the area. Yeah, it's about 8 times the area of what I could build in here. Maybe 16 times. I haven't done the math completely on that. But, and that's not even the biggest. You can make a map as big as your computer will let you build. There's no limits. Meanwhile, this game's 18 by 18 kilometers. And even then, I've gone to terrain.party.com or terrain.party or whatever to download real life maps. And so, ooh, I'll do my hometown. It's 30,000 people. It'll fit right in here. It'll be fine. Nope. I can barely fit a town of 30,000 people in 18 by 18 kilometers. If I wanted to build it, you know, foot by foot, 1-to-1 scale creation, not going to happen. It would not fit. I'd fit most of it, but it's tight, which is a bit ridiculous. And then, why is that? I guess it's because it's in 3D, right? And so there's a limit. You have limits. But SimCity 4 has no limits. I built a city, a single tile, mind you, in SimCity 4. One large tile, which is equal to 4 of these tiles. I'll go back to this view. Sorry, I keep messing up. This area right here, I fit over 2 million Sims in it. 2 million. And that leads me to my number one issue with City Skylines versus SimCity 4, the agent limit enforced by the Unity engine. Now, the Unity engine did its job. It got the developers to build a beautiful 3D city simulation game easily and quickly and very modibly. But the downfall of that is that it's up to, I believe the agent limit of the Unity engine is like 250,000 or something like that. But there's a limit, right? And so if I build much bigger than what I have now, I will get a little window that says you can't build anymore because there's no more, the engine doesn't allow it. And so then all my work here is for naught. What am I going to do? I guess I'll start a new city, I guess, but then I'll be building this city knowing that I can't, that there's limits, right? And sure that it kind of forces you to be, interesting with what you can do, because it forces you to, build within the walls that they gave you. But that just is not present in SimCity 4. You could build a region with over 100 million Sims if you wanted to. If you were capable enough, you could make that game do whatever you wanted. And it has full mod support, much like City Skylines. And there's mods that let you have more population. There's mods that do all kinds of great things in SimCity 4. City Skylines, you can't mod away that limit. So, I say this not because I hate the game, I say this because I love it. Because, what would make this game truly perfect is if they just said, hey, what if you could just buy over here? What if you could just go to the region view, click into this region right here, and then you're still connected, right? You can see the city over here, you could trade with it, but it won't be loading in all these agents over here. That would be a true improvement for City Skylines. And maybe the sequel will have that. Maybe City Skylines 2, if that ever exists, will have that. Or they'll find a different engine that allows them to have an unlimited number of agents. Or maybe agent culling or something where it lets them, only render the agents that really matter, like the people moving or something. I'm not sure. There has to be a way for them to get past that, because it's a city simulation game, but you can't simulate any of the major cities in the world in this game. You can't do it via 1-to-1 scale via land, and you can't do it with the number of people. Real cities have millions of people in them. Heck, over 10 million. I think, the Tokyo metro area or something has like 30 million people living in it. Good luck. At most, I think I've seen a city of like 500,000, maybe 1 million if you do some weird crap, but there's no reason a city simulation game shouldn't be able to simulate a large city. Anyways, enough rambling. I hope you enjoyed this video. Drop a like. I think my next video like this will be the top 5 reasons to play City Skylines over SimCity 4. Because you know what? SimCity 4 is old and it has its flaws. So, comment, drop a like or whatever. Let me know what you want me to make, because I can talk about these games forever. Anyways, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching.